it dawns on me. I'm Dawn Kirk, and I am here today with Kimberly Carracedo, and I'm hoping I said that right. She is from New Era, Colorado, and I can't wait to hear more about the work that she's doing organizing with youth. So, Kimberly, would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, hi y'all. You actually said my name pretty darn close, so thanks for that. I've gone my whole life with having folks butcher it. But my name is Kimberly Carracedo. Use the she, her, ella series of pronouns, and I am the Northern Colorado Regional Lead Organizer for New Era, Colorado.
Awesome. So, what does that mean? What is it that you do as the organizer?
Yeah, community organizing is a old practice. Community organizing isn't new. And what I do, my role is that I engage and empower young people to feel at like they have a voice in our political system. So whether that be I go to Colorado State University and I register voters there, but that's just one component of it. The second component is we actually have a youth agenda that highlights we did a listening tour in 2021, highlighting the issues that young people care about in Colorado. And I'm able to actually take that youth agenda with that research that we've done and connect it to the students that I interact with and just the young people overall. My region holds Collins and Greeley, the biggest one, so Larimer and Weld, but we do operate on a regional hub model. So Northern Colorado, Southern Colorado, Western Colorado, Denver, and Boulder. So I have four other counterparts that do similar work as I do in all different areas of the state. So rural Colorado, urban Colorado. So we all kind of bounce from each other, being like, okay, well, is this is what a young rural Coloradan cares about. And this is how it's different from what a young city Coloradan might care about. But there are intersectionalities between both of them. And that's when community organizing comes into play because we are directly in the communities that we serve.
Awesome. So, with that said, you're obviously in Northern Colorado. Have you lived here your whole life, or are you a transplant?
Yeah. So I like to say 50-50. So both my parents are from Panama and immigrated to the United States in 1999. Uh, and they had me here. I was born in Colorado Springs and I spent the majority of my life there. But I'm super blessed in the fact that I was able to visit where my parents were from and get to know that route. I still try and go back every year. When I graduated, I didn't get to go back for 2 more years, but I got to like navigate that. Okay, I grew up in El Paso County, went to school in Larimer County, and things were so different. Uh, so transplant in the sense of like Southern Colorado to Northern Colorado transplant. But Colorado Springs and Fort Collins are actually like two of the biggest growing cities in Colorado. So in terms of size, I was definitely used to the amount of people, but here things are so nice. They're so different. I love them. I love Larimer County. Shout out Larimer County. I went to school here. Like I had mentioned, I went to Colorado State University and I got two pieces of paper. I actually have them on top of my dog's crate. One in international studies, concentrated in Latino America and the Caribbean, and one in political science, concentrated in international law and policy. So that's how I ended up here. Long story.
Awesome. No, I love that actually. And, there aren't that many people who were born and raised in Colorado. Like nowadays, there's not a lot of us. So that's one of the reasons why I asked. So even if you made your way up here as soon as you could, I get that. You finally had a choice and you made it here. And I'm so glad you're putting down roots and doing what you're doing. So you talked about a youth agenda and a listening tour, and I am fascinated to hear sort of what came out of that and what it is that
Yeah.
you're prioritizing.
Yeah. So with our youth agenda, we have two major like policy priorities, economic justice and reproductive rights, i.e., the right to abortion in the state of Colorado. So I have a few based off this youth agenda that we did, what a young rural conservative and what a young rural progressive might care about is different, right?
Sure.
But either way, a young conservative and a young progressive, neither of them can afford their rent right now. Housing is an issue. And that goes across all lines. So what we had figured out was that young people care about climate justice, reproductive rights, higher ed and student debt, economic justice, and democracy reform. So each region has its own like highlight. So for me, a lot of it was housing and our housing wins, which I would love to talk about, just because it's my bread and butter. Um, but one of our housing wins that we had up here, which goes into our youth agenda policy platform of economic justice, is House Bill 24-1007, which abolished restrictive occupancy limits on the basis of family. So I would love to talk about that if I can.
I, I'm so excited that you brought up U+2. I celebrated so very much when that finally got fixed. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. So I was 18 years old when I first started kind of working on U+2, kind of getting more aware of the policy, some of the nuances around it, actual statistics behind it. And then I was 23. I actually saw it pass at the state legislature, just like a piece of it though, because we still have a lot of work to do. But why do we have arbitrary occupancy limits on the basis of family? And I think what really helped the win this time around was not only framing it on young people, which part of this youth agenda is we aim to create the world that young people want to see that benefits everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, two seniors and their caregivers under U+2 still couldn't live together. Two single parents and their chosen family that they have to raise their family also couldn't live together based off U+2. It isn't only Fort Collins that we saw some of these arbitrary occupancy limits, but also in places like Aurora, and in all over the state where now you the state of Colorado can't tell you who's your family or who isn't. If there is 4 bedrooms in a house, and you have 4 people, you can now live there. Um, One thing that I've like really been wanting to highlight is how this policy it went into effect on July 1st. A beautiful day,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful day. But there's still more work to be done, right? Because housing is still unaffordable. But now that limit that that we had was modern day redlining. It truly was modern day redlining. It was
Yeah.
first enacted to keep Irish immigrants out of Fort Collins. No bueno, no bueno. Modern day redlining. So now that House Bill 24-1007 passed, we're just one step further to making things better for our young Coloradans that are renters.
I'm so glad. My kids are young adults, and one teenager still, and so this is a big deal for me. It as a parent, it breaks my heart to know that they may not be able to live here. Like if they decide to have kids and my grandkids live in another state simply because it's unaffordable, shame on us adults, right? Like that isn't how I want it to be. Um, and I want them to have all sorts of options. I lived here, grew up here, and I had the ability to have roommates and not have roommates and have disposable income when I was young before I had kids. That's when I had it, and to see that they're dealing with a whole different kind of world is something that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so I'm glad that you're fighting for that. Obviously, we have that shared purpose regardless of our generations. So, what's next? Since that's a big piece of it, but there is so much more to do. What else are you doing to tackle some of the affordability things?
Yeah. So in terms of the policy, I would defer to our political director on that one. Because we also this year did pass, well, not us, the state legislature, for cause for evictions. I can't speak too much on for cause just because I'm not as familiar with the policy. But I know that our policy team, our political team, is always looking at all of these policies that have the power to impact the lives of young people. And we really are rooted in our policy.
I love that, honestly. And I did. love that you have this really great laid out website. So, as somebody's listening and going, I want to learn more about this, I know that a lot of information is out there, including ways to get involved. Quick plug for that.
Yes.
Um, so, I am actually also really grateful that your work in the listening sessions included the whole political spectrum. Because in Colorado, Larimer County and Weld County, I, I don't have to tell you that you need to know both, right? And that there is like common ground and a lot of places that we can work together on things, as long as we understand what it is that people have in shared. So I'm so glad that that happened. What else are you guys working on that's that common ground? Because I know reproductive rights is a little bit messier, but probably not as messy as we would think.
Really not as messy as folks would think. We ground ourselves in it's our right to choose, right? It's our freedom to choose. So that's a lot more of the Initiative 89 stuff, which is C4, and this is C3. So I can't really
Fair.
talk about it too
Totally
much.
fair.
Uh, oh,
Just
you're good.
platform.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like I would love to talk about it, but it is C4, and this is C3, sadly.
That's all right. So, what else do you do as you're doing the community organizing? Um, Besides going and doing registration drives and getting people engaged in the political process and having conversations about all these important things, like what else does that look like in practice?
Yeah, so this is actually really cool because I'm a recent grad myself. I guest lecture at the university, which is really cool.
Nice.
Um, because I have a favorite professor over at CSU, and I just be like, hey, what are you going over this week, and how can I tie it into some of this work that we're doing? Um, a lot of it is collaboration. A lot of community organizing is collaboration, whether that be with the universities, whether that be with other nonprofits, whether that be with so on and so forth. I'm actually on Latinx steering committee, which is a steering, not sorry, the Latinx Community Network, and I'm on the steering committee, um, where we kind of bring in multiple agencies, whether that be city agencies, whether that be other nonprofits, to come and talk to us. Last week, last month, we have them monthly. We have these meetings monthly. This month, I had mentioned this earlier, but we had the city of Loveland come in and talk to us about their media literacy program, which we think about, right? Like, oh, it's a generational thing. I can just unplug my modem and that's it. That's technology when it's not, right? And like accessibility of that. Um, or just joint civic engagement and collaboration. Actually work with the BIPOC Alliance quite a bit, which is another community nonprofit in Fort Collins that does amazing, incredible work. And we'll put together ballot presentations, ballot breakdowns, like what is this and why should you care? There is a piece of like, okay, I'm registering you to vote. What now? Like, this is on the ballot, and the blue book really explained too well what it is. Shall the state of Colorado blank 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 blank? It's not it's not that understandable, right? For most folks. And even I have a little piece of paper that says political science, and even I have to like break it down. So some of that breaking it down, like, okay, I have a great example. Um, Proposition II last year. Shall the state of Colorado give back this money that it had overtaxed nicotine and put it towards public schools? Okay, why should I care about that? Do I, my siblings go to a K through 12 public school? That's why I care. So kind of that old adage of like, vote because it's your civic duty doesn't really resonate with young people that much. What young people vote off of is based off issue. So things like reproductive rights, things like climate justice, things like the future that they're wanting to create. I know I want to have kids someday. I still want them to be able to access the outdoors. I still want them to have their rights to choose. So it's a little bit of everything. It's collaboration, it's advocacy, it's power building. Um, that's a good way to tie it all together.
I love that. I really do. I there was a lot packed in there, which is fantastic. And honestly, I mean, you're right. Like, I was just, for some inexplicable reason, looking at a policy this morning, and I I could not make sense of it. I was like, wait, what? Because it's just this heavy language, and then I went and looked somewhere else to try to get the plain version of it, and then I was like, that doesn't tell me everything either. And so I'm always so grateful for groups that I can trust who have taken the time to help make it more relevant, right? Because it's also like we don't necessarily always need to know that if like who wants to read all of that if I don't even know that it's important in the first place, right? So I got to know that this is something I care about because I care about this issue, and then I might be more willing to look at the details of it. So I'm glad you're doing that part. I'm glad that you're working with BIPOC Alliance because they're amazing, um, and at
Yeah,
CSU as
last year
well.
last year we actually had our ballot fiesta. And I certainly hope that we'll do it again this year. It's in the works. But essentially, what this was is that we collaborated with other community agencies, Alianza Norco, um, and there were folks that had recently become citizens that were able to come. We had translation, and some of those beefier like ballot measures that have multiple components to it. And imagine like being a brand new citizen and being like, this is my civic duty. Like, I don't know what this says. So like truly making like breaking it down and making it truly accessible for folks regardless of age. Obviously, like we work to advocate for young people ages 18 to 34, but the policies don't just affect us, right? They affect everyone. So we want to make sure that it's accessible and like as edible is what I like to like as consumable. I don't know what's the best word for it.
Yeah.
Um, because shall the state of Colorado enact like that blue book, love it. Like I'm glad that that's like a piece of it that is aiming to make it accessible, but there's still that next step that needs to be taken. And I'm so like honored that my org is like able to like put out things like voter guides, candidate comparisons, all of these other things that we're able to do to truly make it accessible.
Yeah, it's so helpful, and you know, you just brought up the age thing and your sort of target audience, and then I remember just a couple weeks ago I was talking to two people whose birthdays this year where they are going to age out of the young category, and I'm still thinking they're pretty darn young, and you know the issues you care about don't go away on your birthday or right like, and so
Oh, they truly
yeah, yeah. And the other thing I was thinking of too is that um, I, I care about something when somebody I know tells me that it's important. Like that is one of the best ways for me to get informed about something that's new to me. And so, you know, when the work you're doing has that ripple effect as well, because most people, if they learn about something that doesn't sit right or they want to get involved in, they're usually telling other people as well. And so when you make it consumable, then people are better able to explain it to get other people involved. So it's got a really powerful ripple effect in it as well.
You make a great point that I'm about to segue into actually. So my youngest sister is about to age in. Her birthday is on November 4th. It's on election day eve. And this kid's excited. She's excited. And when I asked her, I'm like, okay, why are you like, why do you care? She's like, you made me care. And that felt so good to be like, all right, like I'm so passionate about this thing that like my youngest sister who's about to be voter eligible on election day eve is able to say like, oh yeah, I'm going to take myself to a voter service center, register myself to vote and vote because not only has my sister proved its importance, but it's now important to me. So that was just a beautiful segue into like we have a bunch of folks aging in, and that's also something that we work on. I've actually been able to talk to the Young Men's Service League and Fort Collins before. They brought me in, and it felt like a lot. I'm like, okay, these are a lot. These are teenage boys. How am I going to connect with them?
Sure.
And the way that I was able to connect with them is I have a younger brother who is 16 years old. And just kind of being like, let me get in the mind of someone who like isn't voter eligible yet, but will be soon. Um, and I like put up a bunch of pictures of me and my brother, me and my sister, and I'm like, I care about his future, but his future starts with me. I'm the one who's voting like on these policies that will influence him, and this is why I care. And that really resonated with them. And that also felt good to after be like, hey, Mrs. Carracedo, can I talk to you about this, this, and this? I really care about it, but I don't know how to go about it. One, whether that be testifying at city council, because you can testify at city council regardless of age. You could testify at the dome at the Capitol regardless of age. I think. Don't put me on the Capitol one. I know that you can at city council.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but talking to the kids and just them telling me what they cared about, like, just definitely keeps me grounded in the work that I do because I know that that generation will advocate for the one that comes after it and so on and so forth.
It's so true. And one of my favorite things about working in middle and high schools when I do is um, that, you know, they're at an age where they're like learning all these things about how life is going to be, right? And like, or the history of things, the way that systems work and all of that. And then they're still at a place where they don't have all the access to all of those rights yet. And for a lot of teenagers, that creates this friction that is pretty palpable when they realize that they do have outlets and they do have ways that they can get involved. It's a big deal. I feel that same way actually, regardless of age, for a lot of people with politics. Right? There's that feeling of it doesn't apply to me. It's something that happens out there. It's something that happens to me. And when people realize that there are ways that they can be engaged and be heard and take action, it, it is a game changer, to really be able to show up at city council and know that they have to listen for the 3 minutes at the very least, and that they get emails and all of that, and that stuff matters is a big deal. I'll add, in case you do any more tours to some of the younger folks, the school board meetings work the same way. Um, and so, you know, those are the things that are impacting them day in and day out for those 9 or 10 months a year. It's great to have students speaking up to say, here's what I care about. And so that's another way for them to get involved and engaged and see something that matters to them happen because they did that. So it can be a cool
Oh, absolutely.
effect.
It can definitely be scary at first. And I think that's also a barrier to it. Like, one, can I do this? Two, am I allowed to do this? When we were finding folks that wanted to testify for House Bill 24-1007, that was a big like ask of it. Like, oh, I've never testified before, especially at the Capitol. Like, I don't know if I could do this. Um, and it's your first time, right?
Right.
There's a first for everything. Um, so what I would do is like I'd connect with the individual and be like, we have a beautiful political department that'll train you how to testify. They'll show you like, okay, what is it you care about? Let me help you put it into words. And that's how we really like do create like powerful messages. Some of my old peers over at ASCSU testified in favor of House Bill 24-1007. And some of them reached out to me and were like, hey, how do I do this? I've only done this at city council. I'm like, it's not that different. And your voice is still just as powerful, whether it was there or if it's at the Capitol. Either way, like you will be listened to. And what you have to say is important.
So true. And I'm glad you actually mentioned that because, when you can get that just even little bit of support to in any of those ways, it just brings you a little bit of peace. Frankly, I thought the thing about testifying at the Capitol, the hardest part was parking. Like, I know that sounds lame, but there's no easy way to do parking down there. And so, once I actually got in the building, I was like, God, I'm just glad I'm here. And, and from there, it's cake. So hopefully we continue to have more people advocating. Young people, I think, especially. There's a lot of enthusiasm and energy that comes from hearing from people who like have a stake in this, right? Like we need young people in our community to be living here and working here, right? Like that's a reason why economic justice matters to somebody older who maybe doesn't have kids that they're worried about. But it still matters because ultimately my doctors are going to retire. My plumbing and electrician, those are people who I need young people to go into those trades and or any of the jobs. A lot of industries are aging out, right? Like their workload or their workforce is going to be retiring at like 50 to 80% in the next 10 years. And so there is so much great potential um, for young people to do really cool things here and to get like make a life, but we got to make sure that they can do that because if somebody goes off and has to go find someplace else to live so that they can afford it, the odds of them coming back are slimmer. And then what are we going to do? So, it's a shared thing that we
Completely.
should care about this.
Yeah. My partner and I, we have two furry children. We have two dogs. And like truly just like with rent, with our furry little friends, with managing a full-time job, with still trying to keep like up with friends and do those things, like we focus on political resiliency as well because we live in a unique state where we have elections every year. Not every state is like that. This year alone, young people would have voted 3 times if they voted um, in each primary and in the general. That's a lot of research that goes into each primary, each general, and then do it again next year. So like building up that political resiliency within young people um, is something that we're able to do because we work at the local and state level and we're able to see those wins a lot quicker. And it's where we've been able to see the biggest policy change that we've been able to make.
I love that. I really do. I'm glad that you're focused on that piece because you're right. It can be overwhelming. Um, and especially when you care about it, right? And I mean, like the things that are priorities are big deals. I'm kind of laughing a little bit at what the priorities were for my generation when I was your age, and it was different, right? Like I said, I was able to have a bunch of things like economic stability and it took a while to get a house, but I could do it, I mean there were options, and so my priorities were very, very different. And I think that can be such a big deal when you're working on what am I going to do to survive? What am I going to do to make a living? How am I going to be able to pay for the thing that I need? And so I'm really glad that you're also building that resiliency piece because that coalition and the collaboration and the support system that comes from having people you can go to ask questions and you can trust to help like get you where you need to go, that is such a big deal, right? That's how we all get by.
Absolutely. That community aspect is a really big part of it. Which brings me into my next one, actually. We're launching local chapters in each of our priority regions. So when I say priority regions, I mean like the ones where there's an organizer there. So Southern Colorado, Western, Denver, Boulder, up here. And what we aim is for that to be a political home for young people. So actually building that like community, um, whether that be like, okay, this week was kind of rough in politics. Let's go on a hike and drink coffee after. Or let's talk about it. How do we feel about this? How does this make us feel? Why do we feel this way? Where are we able what are the things that are in our control that we're able to actually like take action on? So I'm really excited about these little chapters that we're launching.
I love that. How would somebody get involved with any of the things, including that, if someone's interested?
Yeah, they could reach out to me. It's just Kimberly at neweracolorado.org. And regardless of region, too, we on our website, we have our Western organizers email. Um, Whoever you need to contact is there, and we do read all our emails. But for our northern chapter, that would be me. Um, and you would just email me and I'd be like, okay, let's add you to the list. Do you want to do some leadership development? Do you want to do some dev work? Do you want to do some operations work? Do you want to do some organizing? We also want to build up leaders. So whether that be like, okay, let's learn how to canvas. Let's have a testimony workshop. So it is that like fun, like community component, but it's also the let's give young people the tools to be empowered.
I love it. That is so great. I am so excited that you're doing all of this and that there are so many different ways that you are diving into this work and sort of spanning that needs that you've heard. Um, do you have plans to do an update on the priorities, or is that something that you're keeping up with as you just do the work?
Yeah, like is in our youth agenda.
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
I actually am unaware. So that policy platform we did in 2021. So I'd assume that we'd update it soon, because young people's priorities always are ever changing. So I am not completely for certain, but
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I was also looking at the list and I'm like, even if you do like add more details or shift, I'm guessing that all of these priorities will stay priorities for the foreseeable future. So, you know, I can see how these are still active, still real. As you were saying, there's work to be done to continue to make progress on things. You know that just getting one bill passed is still not gonna change everything that is impacting economic security. So it's really, really wicked that um, you're hacking away at it. I am really grateful that everybody has an opportunity to get involved. I'm glad that you are also bringing people together in Larimer and Weld. I think there's a lot of cool things that we can do regionally, and a lot of the same challenges that we have as well, right? The economic stability thing um, doesn't look that different when you cross I-25. There was a time when it did, but that's not true anymore, right? There isn't anywhere in driving distance of the Front Range that is is really affordable, and so there's a lot of important work to be done in Alt and in Greeley and in all of those towns over there too, and a lot that can be done when we come together, right?
yeah, and it's definitely helped me evolve as an organizer just because I wouldn't consider Colorado Springs rural. I grew up closer to Fountain, so like a lot closer to Pueblo than like Monument, for example. Um, and when I first started community organizing, in like rural Weld, I was like, I actually don't know. Like, what's the political landscape here? If I'm aiming to serve this community, how can I do it in a way that's equitable and not just come in and be like, I'm here? And a lot of that was asking community leaders, like, okay, this is where I'm from. This is what I care about over here. What do you care about over here? And coming at it truly from a perspective of like, I want to learn, I want to hear you, I want to make you like feel like you truly are empowered and like show you how. I think that's the component that like is one of my favorite parts of this job is it's one thing, like I said, it's one thing to like get registered, right? That's the first step. But the step that follows is like knowing what those tools are and utilizing them to uplift your voice. So when I first started doing it in Greeley, um, it took some time to learn, but I've been doing it for 2 years now. I'm like right in between them too. I'm right in between Fort Collins and Greeley. So I get to kind of live the best of both and keep evolving as an organizer and keep learning.
I'm so glad, honestly. And that's one place where I can see, like, as you're talking about listening to what's the needs in the different communities, like that I can see being something that's where time matters, right? Because each of these communities is very different now than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. As people are moving into our area, all of these cities, especially the smaller towns, have like a whole new identity, right? Many of them have doubled in size in like 10 years. And so it's really cool to like see the cities that ended up with more young people, or the cities that ended up with certain jobs compared to other ones, right? And so that's exciting to like really get to understand what's happening across our region. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing this.
It's really cool looking at Larimer County specifically, like the amount of young folks that come into Larimer to work versus the ones that go out because either like they couldn't find like a job in Larimer, or it's like the inverse happens, and it's like so large on both sides. Like a whole lot of people like move into Larimer County for work and like don't live in Larimer County, and then a whole bunch of people that do live in Larimer County like go elsewhere for work. So it's super interesting. The city of Fort Collins had a work session about it. So if you're interested, definitely look at their work section. A lot of people don't know that a lot of things go down at the work sessions. So go to the work sessions. Or if you don't want to, I'll recap it for you.
Yeah, they are really powerful. They were doing so many great things with their social sustainability that, I mean, it was like a great way to hear from multiple perspectives in one room to kind of hash through how can we do that, which made me think of transportation too, which is like a whole different big piece of this as well, right? Like, we are this very much a like single car type area, and a lot of people are used to driving long distances and not thinking much about it, but that's a big way that we can be more affordable and have climate justice and take care of our environment by just rethinking that as well. So hopefully that's part of what you're working on too someday.
Hopefully someday. Like I said, my family's from Panama. And Panama truly like one, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world to me, but their environmental policy is we banned plastic straws years ago. We got rid of plastic bags years ago. Um, I compost, I recycle. I'm a big environmental gal myself, so I would love to continue doing that work and also connecting it with like civic engagement. So that's why, like, when I brought up all right, we're kind of fed up with politics this week. Let's go on a hike. How are we going to still make sure that our outdoors is accessible? I remember literally like weeks ago, I woke up one morning and my house smelled like smoke because we were a few miles away from the fires in Estes. And that makes me sad. And all of this is impacting like I hope that genuinely impacts like policy. Like I hope people see all this and are like, dang, there were 4 fires this week. What are we going to do to actually impact change, and how are we going to go about it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad actually that you brought that up, because I think that that is one of the sweet spots in the way that you're approaching the work, right? Like that's an easy way to just build the community and then be talking about things that matter and be involved with the things that matter all at the same time. It's a really nice intersection. So I love that. Um, well, is there anything that you want people to know about your organization or your work that is just red hot? You want people to know it right now, or you want people to get involved with it right now?
I can't think of anything that we haven't touched on already. I've tried to like plug it in wherever like it was fitting. So honestly, I feel like we've touched on most, if not everything.
I love that. That's always a nice feeling to be able to be like, yeah, I actually did talk about all the things I meant to. Well, I would love to have you back. This stuff is big and meaty, and there's a lot to it. And so to be able to chunk that out and like even talk just specifically about one thing would be really, really great. Another thing that we've been thinking about doing, we haven't done it yet, but I'll put it out there as like a teaser for you to think about, is that we want to do panels. Because to your point, being able to not just have one person have to be the voice of something can be a big relief, and it gives us the ability to have that richer conversation and bounce off of each other. So that's something that we're going to be doing here soon. So that might be a fun thing for us to play with as well. If you have some people might want to be part of one of these targeted conversations, that would be really cool.
Thinking of a lot of young leaders right now. Yeah, I'd be so down to do it.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you've like braided all this together. It's very powerful to just see that like we're taking care of people in all these different ways in net. And so kudos for having that rich perspective and the rich ability to pull it all together. I'm glad you came. I learned a lot and I'm really excited about the work you're doing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, that is our show for this episode. I'm all glad you all were here and thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Paid for by the Larimer County Democratic Party. 2001 South Shield Street, Unit B3. Fort Collins, Colorado, 80526. 970-689-6391. Not authorized by any candidate or any candidate's committee. Andrew Yates, registered agent.